Let's get ready to rumble! What's up? Hey. What do you say? Besides, the earth is flat, and that is that. What's up, good people? Tommy in the house. Good to see anybody and everybody. The real truth. Hello. All right. Show me Sasquatch in the house. All right, brother. We're going to start off with a song real quick. Gotta do it.
Forced into my mind this made up glow. Now I'm set free my mind. I let it go. If this life should last forever, at least we are together. I know I'm not alone. We know it's not a glow. Anywhere, whenever, apart but still together. I know I'm not alone. We know it's not a glow. It's not a glow. I'm not alone. I'm not alone. We know it's not a glow. Spinning forward. I now know that you're fake. Deceived since birth. I'm no longer being played. If this life should last forever, at least we are together. I know I'm not alone. I know it's not a glow. Anywhere, whenever, apart but still together. I know I'm not alone. We know it's not a glow. It's not a glow.
It's not a glow.
I'm not alone.
I'm not alone.
I'm not alone.
It's not a
We know
glow.
it's not a glow. Not alone. Not alone. I'm not alone. Not alone. Not alone. We know it's not a glow. I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
It's not a
We
glow.
know it's not a glow. I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I'm not alone. We know it's not a glow.
All right, while we're at it, we might as well do another instant classic by Christian Knapp. Great Flat Earth song here, too. If you don't like Christian Knapp, you probably just need to go take a massive crap and maybe a nap.
Well, they tell us they're exploring outer space, but it's all fake. It's fucking fake. $60 million every day is what we pay.
To be lied
They
to.
fucking take. 'Cause we're brainwashed, trained to believe man-made dark cosmology. A trap set by evil fuckers many centuries ago to dupe the population and take control of the world. Seen it all before, it's the oldest play in the book. Fishing for souls by making the devil's hook. Wizards and warlocks practicing evil and magic. Cooked up a plan and they called the plan science. Sprinkle all their bullshit with some formulas and math to make themselves look brilliant, cause only they understand. In the faith of the masses as they push theories and lies, trying to make us slaves and feel God lives inside. God lives inside. So they try to make us godless inside. So we all roll over and say, go ahead, NASA, have your fucking way. Why can't we see so much farther than they say? 50 miles plus across the ocean on a clear blue day. Why would they say it's a mirage you're looking at? Yeah, right, that's not science. That's just a load of bogus math. Use your eyes and a zoom lens. Spot an object far across the sea. That's all it takes to prove there's no bend to be seen. Look for any curve, and it just leads you to the fact. We got hills and valleys, but the rest is flat. It's fucking flat.
It's definitely flat, man.
Ooh, it's fucking flat. Ooh, it's fucking flat.
Hey.
Ooh, it's fucking flat.
And that's that. Oh, where are you? Come on. There you are. There you are. I'll get a copyright for this one. Definitely do that crap. Oh, what would we do without truth music?
A friend of mine once told me to do a search online. Search for photos of Earth, he said. This shit will blow your mind. So I opened up the Google and I looked for photos of Earth. Well, a lot of photos came up. He said, click on the first. He said, that's the famous blue marble that everybody's seen. We've seen this photo 1,000 times upon our TV screen. Well, let me tell you something about that famous shot. Not a photo at all, man. It was made in Photoshop. Cause there ain't no photographs, you must somebody tell me why. They're all just Photoshop cartoons, they're all just CGI. No photographic proof of a photo, none at all. Why the hell can't no one take a photo of this ball? He was goddamn right. That shit did blow my mind. Because I thought the blue marble was a photo all this time. Well, don't you think that's strange? He said suspiciously. Well, the fact that it ain't a photo seems pretty weird to me. I mean, the most important photo that man could ever take, this huge iconic image turns out to be a fake. Well, I couldn't quite believe it, man. I was pretty shocked. I needed further proof that this photo's Photoshop. He said, look up Robert Simon. He made that cartoon ball. He's the guy you should research. He works for NASA and all. He openly admits that it's all just artistry. He said, and I quote, it's Photoshopped, but it has to be. There ain't no photographs, you must somebody tell me why. They're all
Okay, I can only take so much of him. And I like country music, but...
You probably feet are standing to the ground, to the ground. You only see that cause it's not around, not around. You know the moon, it wasn't never found, never found. They made up everything, they made up everything. You probably feet will stagger to the ground, to the ground. see that cause it's not around, not around. You know they never left the basic clouds, basic clouds. They made up everything, they made up everything. Whoa, I did not believe there is a flat earth. That whole thing look like it is for facts, bro. Why would they tell me the shit is round for? Must be true cause that shit in the textbook. Only when the sun is out it opened my eyes. It ain't coming up and setting on the same side. Then I saw the moon and sun is about the same size. Now I know that what I learned is a pseudoscience. When I throw a bowling ball and a pen, it doesn't roll around and come in my day. So then how the world is supposed to rotate? Unless the sun revolves right over our head. You probably see a thing fall to the ground, to the ground. You only see that cause it's not around, not around. It doesn't roll but fucking settles down, settle down. They made up everything, they made up everything. You probably still believe in up and down, up and down. I can't explain the fucking middle ground, middle ground. Gravity and why the shit so bounce, shit so bounce. They made up everything, they made up everything. Whoa, I see the picture from the moon. Was Photoshop real pretty too? The bucket field was overused. Africa had too many Jews. And I once took everything in faith, like I'm sending monkeys into space. But when a map is open I can say that it is flat and not a fucking sphere. The stuff you see is really meta now, meta now. You know the world is really not around, not around. You are the realist in the ghetto now, ghetto now. You question everything, don't believe anything. You telling people on Nintendo now, Nintendo now. That gravity was all invented now, invented now. The landing moon was shot it in and out, in and out. They made up everything since 90.
All right, probably get a copyright on that one. Oh dear. I got one more, and then we're gonna play some serious stuff. I promise. Sure, you know. Oh yeah, I think that's where I was supposed to be right there. So have y'all ever heard of Flat Boys? Flat Boys. Earth is flat, and it's got some explicit language in it, but. Wow, this is weird. It's only a minute and 24 hours. 24 hours. A minute and 24 seconds. Yeah, this is live. So, yeah, y'all give me a reminder when it gets close to 20 after, please. Might not make it that long. But check this weird shit out, man. Here, if you haven't seen it, Flat Boys. Earth is flat. Oh dear. I might regret playing this.
Yeah. Denver. Yeah. Stand up.
Hard body shit.
Flat Boys.
Bang.
Let's go.
Hard body shit.
Ever since my birth, my dick got mad girth. I'm chilling with my people talking about that flat earth.
Last night, your boy had some sex with a nice girl. Did the Titanic really hit an iceberg?
When other people spend their lives chasing wealth, me and my boys, we chase that ice shell.
Ice shell, fuck a globe, not a part of the system. Trying to keep us down, but whoops, you missed one.
It's really sad to see all these people mad at me, cause I just figured out there's no such thing as gravity.
Yeah, NASA, and now I think I'll pass her. Hard pass. Forgot everything I learned in class.
It's a storm of information like a monsoon. Lying mother, no one landed on the moon.
Not a straight answer, what is you saying? Out with the old like a human-sized penguin.
The earth is flat, the earth is flat. People around the globe know the earth is flat. I don't care about this, I don't care about that. People around the globe know the earth is flat.
Bang.
Yeah, Denver, Flat Earth Convention, 2018, Flat Boys. Yeah.
Oh dear, that shit's weak, boy. It's funny. Man. Wow. Okay. Damn it, we got one more from our boy. Fuck it. Excuse my language.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
Tobin in the house.
Frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood
What up, up?
Have you ever dreamed of going up to outer space? Or maybe meeting other beings from another place? Have you ever wondered what it's like on other planets? Then you watch a science show and come to believe you understand it? You feel empowered by the knowledge and you feel enlightened, listening to Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson. But then you wake up and you start to see the obvious. Life is just a lie and this whole world ain't what we thought it was. NASA's missions to the moon were never completed. They just filmed them in a room and people believe it. I used to wonder what it's like to be an astronaut. Now when I see them acting, I can't help but to laugh a lot. They give us cartoons and they claim that we live on a ball, but it's flat and it's not moving or spinning at all. Why you lying to us, man? That's something that we want to know. After that, you're gonna have to pack up all your stuff and go.
Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement.
History has been rewritten by winners of wars. The Jesuit order, Khazars, Freemasons, and more. They pulled the veil over our eyes, and it's time to awaken. Through organized indoctrination, our minds have been taken. It's time we take our power back and we rescue our people. The Vatican and the bankers are like Resident Evil. They may have had the greatest plan that was ever concocted, but Illuminati never thought that they'd ever be spotted. They're manufacturing reality all in our heads. They tell us if the earth is flat, then we'll fall off the edge. But if it is a spinning ball, we won't fall off it then. And gravity is our imaginary magic friend. Why is water always flat when unmanipulated? Why are pictures of the earth computer generated? Why you lying to us, man? That's something that we want to know. After that, you're gonna have to pack up all your stuff and go.
Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement. Space may be in the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement.
Dear NASA, it's becoming 100% crystal clear that you and the other space programs that are in operation are connected and are deceiving the entire world. More and more people are waking up every single day, and we are now able to see right through you. But what we really want to know is, why are you lying? Sincerely, me and the great people of this earth.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in the Hollywood basement.
The captain thinks the world is around.
This afternoon, I want to talk a little bit about the Antarctic Treaty. Now, I know everyone knows in detail about the Antarctic Treaty, right? Okay, well, I'm done. Okay. I want to talk about a little bit about the political history of Antarctica, and probably the most important question is, who's in charge? The treaty, you have to put yourself in the perspective of the time frame. This was an international agreement that was negotiated in 1959.
Mile upon mile of natural beauty, land and sea sculpted by one of the harshest climates in the world. This is unique, untouched land, not owned, not exploited. This is Antarctica. Covering nearly 10% of the globe, It's protected by a treaty that ensures it's used for peaceful purposes only, and in the interests of all mankind.
The Antarctic became an area of international research in the 1950s with the first crossing of the Antarctic by the Sir Vivian Fuchs and Stradman Hillary. This was a period called the International Geophysical Year, and it was out of the International Geophysical Year that the Antarctic Treaty grew.
Signed in Washington, D.C. on the 1st of December in 1959, the treaty established the world's first international space by stating no claims to sovereignty could be made by the 7 claimed sectors on the grounds of activity in the area. At the same time, it became the first nuclear arms agreement, and today it's backed by 47 nations, and at its core is science, and the role it plays as a common interest amongst nations.
Conservation is not just how you're going to protect animals, or that's part of it. But for instance, freedom of exchange of information is very important to conservation because information is power.
This is just one of hundreds of research stations. Scientists from all over the world work side by side in the interests of humanity. It's the key place to study climate change. The treaty is crucial not only for scientific research, but because it regulates all human activity, including fishing and tourism.
My main fear is that too many people with a commercial interest will start to be able to treat the Antarctic like just another place to make money.
The Antarctic Treaty is a unique document in history. It's now recognized as one of the most successful international agreements ever negotiated, and takes place alongside the Magna Carta in terms of man's quest for enlightenment and order. It exists in a time when on the other side of the globe, in the Arctic, superpowers fight to own and exploit resources.
It would be wonderful if the world community could set aside the Arctic for peaceful purposes only, and that the nations in the Arctic could agree that that is a common interest, that they all have a common interest in managing the Arctic for peaceful purposes only. It's not an issue of economics. It's not an issue of environmental protection. It's an issue that crosses all of these uses and interactions.
The Antarctic Treaty Summit, convening on the treaty's 50th anniversary, is to ensure the treaty stays in place. But it's also to showcase to the world an agreement in which sovereignty claims have been set aside.
The lesson from the Antarctic Treaty is it matters not what your political system is, and it doesn't actually matter what your culture is, because there are some fundamental principles about the way in which people want to live that can actually underpin the way in which governance functions for the common good. And the Antarctic Treaty is the best example that we've had so far of how to work together.
Today, when the major challenges for civilization, climate change, depleted resources, are not national but global issues, there's ever-increasing pressure to find a new model for governance. The Antarctic Treaty could be it.
Making process that on first blush you would think it would be a disaster, but it's not. It has to be unanimous. If there's a provision brought up to change or amend the treaty or bring in some new regulations, it's by consensus. Every single member of the treaty, every party must agree. And so nothing happens real fast in that form, but you do get consensus. The other big issue, and this is actually the old station at South Pole, the other big issue was the continuing collaboration with a non-government organization, the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research. They invited that group to meetings. That group was actively involved and continues to this day to be actively involved to coordinate the science activities between all the countries. Again, eliminate duplication of efforts. SCAR predated the treaty, and it's a tremendous resource for any country that is interested.
I don't know if that was a human or not. That was weird.
It's actually an image of Palmer Station.
Sorry.
Now, those legal provisions turned out to be extremely successful. Peaceful purposes, And cutting edge science continued to be one of the goals of all the countries that are working in Antarctica. It's unbelievable that we had an arms disarmament agreement between the US and the Soviet Union in 1960. Plenty of us in this audience remember that in those time periods, that's when your kids went to high school and they taught them how to hide under the desk. And you maybe had some place out in your backyard where you had a hole in the ground and all those things. That potential for international disagreement, we took an area that was 1.5 times the size of the United States and set it aside for peaceful purposes. Truly, truly amazing. But that was in 1961. So while it worked, the question is, what's happened since then within the treaty system? Now, one of the provisions in the treaty under those environmental protocols deals with tourism. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that because we are all going to be directly affected by that. As I said to you earlier, the area of the Antarctic Treaty that covers is any area south.
How that looks like a tree.
Degrees south. So when this ship reaches that location,
imagine that.
We are covered under those provisions. This ship cannot burn heavy fuel south of 60 degrees. This ship cannot carry heavy fuel south of 60 degrees. So the captain and the engineers have calculated very carefully how much heavy fuel they have on board, and they will be burning that off before we get south of 60 degrees. When we are south of 60 degrees, please, no food on the outside decks. You saw some pictures of birds earlier. If the birds come in, if you're out on the deck with food, and that bird comes in, you're in violation of the Antarctic Treaty under the
they don't want
US
you seeing
laws
those
because this company
alien birds
operates from a U.S. company, so they have a permit from the Environmental Protection Agency to come here. No waste over the sides. And please be careful if you're outside with a container on, with your coffee lid on it, please. Be careful with the wind that doesn't get blown off. No smoking on the outside decks when we're south of 60 degrees. There'll be a location on the vessel. In the late 50s, most of us rode down the road in a car and threw things out the window and didn't think anything about it. And when they signed the Antarctic Treaty, most of them didn't know how to spell environment. It wasn't an issue that was on the table. By the late 80s, it was becoming a significant issue to be concerned with. So they were trying to address environmental protection under the Antarctic Treaty System, as well as struggle with the issue of marine resources. So
it was never about saving the environment only to hide something. Yes, the treaty to hide. When you research for pictures of Antarctica, you only get to this. Antarctica is no real continent. It is surrounding us. The UN flag shows the flat Earth map surrounded by 13 white leaves on each side. Yep. And if you find it here, the Snake Destroying Health Organization. And here. Yep. And the globalist with the globe and globalist with the flat Earth. They claim to have beautiful satellite pictures. Yes, YouTube sucks off this here. Dang it. I hope I'm not muted. I hope y'all can hear me. Okay.
Territorial claims. The United Kingdom made a territorial claim in 1908 with some frauding from the UK. New Zealand made a claim in 1923. Australia followed with a claim in 1933. France, of course, followed immediately after Australia with a claim in 1924. And then Norway and Chile and Argentina made claims. The Chilean and Argentinian claims were just before World War II, but the interesting portion, of course, is Great Britain, Argentina, and Chile all claim the same territory. There was some significant issues or concerns, and actually Germany under Hitler had an expedition to Antarctica in 1939, but they didn't make any territorial claims. When you look at the picture, you'll notice this area is unclaimed.
Any guess why this huge
States,
area wasn't claimed as a territory?
Actually, claimant nations fully expected the United States to make a claim, and they more or less
Flat Earth map, real world.
Part
between South America and New Zealand is a huge distance and shoreline. This part of the flat Earth is not easy to reach and barely discovered.
Interesting that both the United States and
the Earth is flat.
Another major world power that doesn't have a claim, Soviet Union. It is absolutely amazing to me that you could get 12 countries in 1959, when you looked at that list of countries, to agree, particularly the Soviet Union and the United States, but also Chile and Argentina and Great Britain, that all had overlapping claims. And
crazy man. ODD TV.
Sacred place in the north, often described as a harmonious paradise. The Norse would call it Agartha. For Hindus, it's referred to as Paradisha. The Greeks knew it as Hyperborea. The Celtics called it Avalon. Buddhists call it Shambhala, and in the Bible, it's referred to as the Garden of Eden. That's just a few of the names. In fact, this place has been dubbed the Land of 1,000 Names. At the center of this paradise is the Axis Mundi, also called the Cosmic Axis, World Axis, World Pillar, Center of the World, and World Tree. This is said to be the connection between heaven and earth. Here is the Norse depiction. We have Yggdrasil, which is the tree of life. This is Mount Meru, from Buddhist, Jain, and Hindu cosmology. It's a central world mountain that reaches high into the heavens, and resting above it is the North Star. In the Mayan cosmology, there is a central pyramid. Same theme with the Inca cosmology and the Navajo cosmology. So you get the idea, and of course, this is fascinating on its own. But here's where it gets crazy. In the 15 and 1600s, many maps were made that depicted 4 large islands in the Arctic region surrounding the North Pole. The most popular map with these Arctic land masses comes from 1595 by Gerardus Mercator, where we can see a large black mountain called the Rupus Nigra, surrounded by a great whirlpool into which 4 powerful rivers flow. These rivers divide a massive landmass into 4 distinct islands. These islands were said to have been written about in great detail in a lost book from the 14th century called the Inventio Fortunata, which itself also references much older and similarly lost work. Suddenly, in the mid-1600s, all traces of the 4 Arctic lands, the Central Mountain, and the whirlpool had vanished, not to be seen on any map thereafter. Currently, we are told that there is no land at the North Pole, but instead, a floating ice sheet that expands and contracts from season to season. Here's a short clip from a documentary claiming to be going to the North Pole.
Arriving destination 15 feet, 12, 10, 2. North Pole. Top of the world, guys. Top of the world. We'll get that in a minute, Jake.
How cool is that? So what do you think? Is the real North Pole being hidden from us?
Yes.
Are they hiding land at the center of the Earth? Is that why we are told about Santa Claus at an early age, and it's conveniently related to the North Pole so that when we inevitably find out that Santa Claus is total BS, we also dismiss the North Pole? Not that it doesn't exist, but, we just kind of forget about it along with Santa Claus. Sure feels that way. And as usual, the truth seems to show up in plain sight in Hollywood movies. I just watched the new movie, The Dark Tower, based on the Dark Tower book series by Stephen King. And sure enough, it was all about the Axis Mundi.
You draw a good hand.
I just don't know what this is.
It's a map. My father showed me a map like this once. Inside the circle is your world and my world. Many others. No one knows how many. The Dark Tower stands at the center of all things. And it stood there from the beginning of time.
Dark Tower equals Rupus Nigra, or the Black Rock. And in the movie, a young boy goes to another dimension called Midworld, and the only reason he's able to get in is because, quote,
his shine is pure.
That's a prerequisite in a lot of the North Pole paradise mythology we were discussing earlier. This magical kingdom will only reveal itself to believers pure in heart. What does this mean? It means that you must shed all your past traditional beliefs and open your mind and heart to the possibilities of the invisible worlds beyond our senses of reality. The Western world has been conditioned to see first, then believe. But in the search for Shambhala, you must believe first. Just like in the movie Doctor Strange.
You're talking to me about healing through belief.
You're a man looking at the world through a keyhole. You've spent your whole life trying to widen that keyhole, to see more, to know more. And now, on hearing that it can be widened in ways you can't imagine, you reject the possibility.
No, I reject it because I do not believe in fairy tales about chakras or energy or the power of belief. There is no such thing as spirit. We are made of matter and nothing more. Just a tiny, momentary speck within an indifferent universe.
You think too little of yourself.
In the Wonder Woman movie, the guys are on the ocean, it's dark and foggy, then suddenly they poke through to see a beautiful hidden land.
Pokey.
On Kong, Skull Island, there is a hidden land surrounded by a perpetual storm system. When the people finally get there by way of helicopter, you can see the Aurora Borealis. So there we have a hidden land in the Arctic.
This is interesting, this part.
Connection. On the movie The BFG, Big Friendly Giant, there's a scene where they jump through a water gateway to a hidden land. And again, we see the Aurora Borealis in the scene. On the video game Uncharted 2, we get this cutscene.
That's amazing.
Chloe, I know where that is. Let me use your bag. Which means... the entrance to Shambhala must be right here.
Oh, yeah.
Here it is, Elena. The secret entrance to Shambhala.
In the movie The Golden Compass, there is a magical dust at the North Pole that connects the world to a parallel universe. That movie, The Fountain, was a weird one. Have you ever seen that? Had some domed world, tree of life symbolism. Here's one that I didn't catch until recently, but during the credits, the end credits of the first Thor movie, it has the mountain reaching the heavens, depicted in the Yggdrasil Norse Tree of Life cosmology. Of course, that one is easy. Thor is obviously full of Norse concepts. My favorite part is when they are fighting on the Bifrost Bridge, aka Rainbow Road. If you don't get the joke, then you need to play some Mario Kart. Now, this next movie is by far my favorite on this list. It's called The Children Who Chased Lost Voices, known as Journey to Agartha in the UK.
It is said to be a place where any kind of wish can be fulfilled, even resurrecting the dead.
Is Agartha a real place?
Who knows? It could just be an old legend.
It's very straightforward, where a little girl journeys to Agartha, and I highly recommend this one. The story and the animation are just perfect. Visually stunning masterpiece for sure. So I'm going to get out of here. Hope you enjoyed this video. And I have to say that I barely scratched the surface on this. A channel called Flat Earth Paradise covers this topic in great detail and inspired me to make my own video. I'll have a link for his channel in the description. Thanks for watching.
And from there, I went to the middle of the earth and saw a blessed, well-watered place, which had branches which remained alive and sprouted from a tree which had been cut down. And there I saw a holy mountain, and under the mountain, to the east of it, there was water, and it flowed towards the south. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it was parted and became 4 heads. Beautiful in elevation is the joy of all the earth, Mount Zion, in the far north, the city of the great king.
What's exciting about this? Well, they're all facing north, right?
Yeah, so?
The needle's naturally drawn to the Earth's magnetic North Pole.
Meaning, if we follow the compasses north,
they should lead us to the gate.
Buckle your seat. Hello, everyone. This is ODD, and yes, I'm finally admitting that even though I don't like labels, I'm a flat earther. Based on my research for the past 10 months, our world is very different from the model that we are being taught by the authority on the matter. It took me a while to come to terms with this, and it took even longer to gain the courage to talk about it. It can be pretty embarrassing to go against popular opinion, but this is real. It's not a psyop, it's not a distraction, and it's not a bandwagon. It's a reasonable debate. It's thousands of people taking what we've been told and comparing it to what we see and experience, only to find out that they do not match up. Once you start digging into this, it becomes clear that there is no evidence for the speculated spinning ball that we supposedly live on, and everything points to a flat Earth. The flat Earth is much more than just reasonable. The one and only reason that it's reasonable to argue against the flat Earth is that we've all been taught otherwise our whole lives. We blindly believe something that A, has never been proven, and B, is pretty much fucking impossible. Thanks to people like Eric Dubay, the flat Earth has re-emerged and it has more steam than ever. Before I've ever even entertained the flat Earth, I knew not to trust the space programs of the world. Close examinations of NASA and other space programs reveal that things aren't what they seem and that we, the people, are being lied to.
Yes,
we have no real pictures of the Earth, and no matter how hard we try, we just can't find the curvature. Not only that, but flight paths make more sense on a flat map, and large bodies of water not being able to curve into a giant ball completely resonates.
Forensically speaking, the globe model is so very unlikely that any good detective wouldn't believe a fucking word the globe says. The globe story is so full of circumstantial, impossible coincidences, which only prove that the globe is a fucking liar.
We'll be going over that in this video, as well as other reasons why the world isn't what we're led to believe. I appreciate you tuning in. Let's get started. Our daily observations of the Earth are consistent with a flat and stationary surface. Most, if not all, ancient civilizations knew that the Earth was flat. The people of today would say that ancient cultures were ignorant and unaware, yet they accomplished great feats that we still can't accomplish to this day. The truth is that they had real knowledge, and some of us only have an education. But what is an education? Education is when you are told what to think and how to think. Those that are able to remember and regurgitate what they've been told on command are considered well educated. But there is a big difference between being educated and being intelligent. Just because you believe what you've been told doesn't make it true. In fact, the flat versus spherical Earth is a debate that has never really died. It's been raging for centuries. It was a huge argument as recently as the early and mid-1900s, but with programs like NASA, founded in 1958, the latter half of the 20th century was a win for the spherical Earth. It wasn't a question for the average person anymore. Though at the time the shape of the Earth was still up to be proven, NASA claims that they went to the moon and captured a shot of the spherical Earth as if they always knew it was indeed spherical.
Those of you who think this technical difficulty was planned and think I'm scamming you, go do it for yourself. Because you're going to find the exact same thing. I got nothing to hide here. This is live on the air, okay? I'm going to zoom in on the Earth in Photoshop. You see the Earth? To image, adjust, levels, and I'm going to bring the levels over here. And I'm going to bring the levels up. Uh-oh. What is that? Why is there a square box around the Earth allegedly taken from the scientists on the moon in Apollo 17? And people wonder why I don't trust NASA. That's why I don't trust NASA. I mean, they're always out there saying, you know, Rob, everybody's trying to show you stuff from space, and you keep rejecting it. This is why I reject it. These guys are liars, you know?
What are some of the basic observations someone can make to ascertain that the Earth is neither a globe or spinning?
We've been taught that we're on a ball spinning around the sun, and so to hear that you might be on a flat plane, motionless, at the center of the universe with all the celestial bodies spinning around you, just as it appears, actually comes as a surprise. But it shouldn't, because our eyes, experience, and common sense all tell us that the horizon is perfectly flat, and we feel motionless. We don't hear ourselves whizzing by at thousands of miles per hour. No matter how high amateur rockets or balloons have gone up, the horizon rises to the eye of the observer all the way up. And that's only consistent with a flat plane. Their theory just gets more and more wild as time has gone on. And so, yeah, it began with the spinning Earth going 1,000 miles per hour, which is then circling around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour, which then they decided the sun wasn't a heliocentric model, but more of an acentric model, where they don't know where the center is, and we're just exploding out of a big bang. So the sun, we're spinning around the sun, and then the sun and us are spinning around the Milky Way galaxy, they say, at 500,000 miles per hour. And then the entire Milky Way galaxy, they say, is shooting off from the Big Bang at 670 million miles per hour, almost the speed of light. So there's at least 4 rip-raging, contradictory motions supposedly going at all times, yet you don't experience any of it, nor can you measure any of it using the stars. The flat motionless Earth is, not only is it the greatest conspiracy of all, it's also the easiest to prove. I mean, it just is flat and motionless, just as it appears. Look into it more and more, make it a thing to try and debunk it, if you will. You know, even if you want to do it that way. Negative reinforcement works too. Try as you will, you're only going to find proofs for the flat motionless Earth. You're not going to confirm that you're on a spinning ball.
The curvature of the Earth eludes us. Either the Earth is much larger in circumference than we are told, or the curve just doesn't exist. People assume that there is a curve, but it's never really been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Cameras with fisheye lenses, Hollywood movies, and NASA CGI are the closest we get to seeing curvature.
Yep.
The deception and the lies are just so pervasive, and they're just so deep that I swear it gives me a headache.
The surface of water is always level. This is just natural physics. We know this, that water, if unobstructed and uncontained, will flow outwards, finding the easiest course to maintain its own level, right? So, but the Ball Earth model claims that the oceans are huge 100-mile walls of curved water curving around the ball. That's ridiculous. They say that gravity makes this possible, but you don't see that. You go to the beach, you see completely flat horizon, you see water just ever so gently coming up on the shore.
So there's the pretty blue marble that NASA claims we are living on, with circumference of 24,901 and 3959 radius. So to find the curvature, you take 8 inches times your distance squared. That's 8 inches times your distance squared. And if you don't square the distance, you end up with this. And this is not what NASA has shown us. They have given us a beautiful blue marble that we love. So you get 8 inches for 1 mile, 32 inches in 2 miles, 16.6 feet with 5 miles, so on and so forth. So what I did is I shot this pier, which is in Daytona Beach, Florida.
I've been
And
to that
as you can
pier many
see,
times.
between the water and the walkway of the pier is about
I drove by
12
it
to
on that
16
beach.
feet based on the height
Rode
of the
by it on
people and the
motorcycle.
railing. So I started at Granada, which is 4.92 miles away, and I shot this. And based on that distance and the formula, there should be 16 feet of curvature. But obviously, you can still see the entire gap under the walkway there between that and the water. So in addition to that, behind that pier is actually a lighthouse, which you can see right above the pier. You can see the light. That is 16 miles away from my location. And I shot that lighthouse. Now that lighthouse is 175 feet tall, and the curvature from 16 miles away should be 170 feet. You can clearly see about the entire lighthouse beyond that pier. So like I said, there should be 170 feet of curvature. There's none. And those hotels there are even further. Those are in New Smyrna, which is 20 miles.
New Smyrna, I used to surf there.
NASA is right, and there is, we do live on a ball. They're going to have to make up that curvature. If it's not in the 20 miles I'm shooting, well, then that means it's got to be made up further on down the line. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say we live on this ball and then say, oh, you can't detect the curvature. Well, you got to detect it somewhere, because if it's not dropping here, it's going to have to drop even more down the lines in order to make that circle, that ball they say we live on. And it's pretty round. That blue marble they give us is perfectly round.
Lighthouses are one great example. The Isle of Wight Lighthouse in England, it's 180 feet high and can be seen up to 42 miles away, a distance at which modern astronomers say the light should fall 996 feet below the line of sight. Why can you still see it? Another one worth mentioning that people be familiar with is the Statue of Liberty. It stands 326 feet above sea level, and on a clear day can be seen as far as 60 miles away. Now, if the Earth was a globe at the dimensions that they give us, that would put Lady Liberty at an impossible 2,074 feet below the horizon.
Imagine that. No pictures from NASA that are
No, not one picture of the Earth. Imagine that. 2016, and we still don't have a picture of our home. Thousands of satellites
and we don't have a
supposedly
picture.
orbiting the Earth. Why can't we get thousands of pictures? One shot with the whole Earth in it. Hell, we should have a channel on cable that shows the Earth rotating 24 hours a day, every day. Nope. Let's listen to NASA's very own Robert Simmons talk about how we get our fake pictures of Earth.
In 1972, we saw our home in a new way. Apollo 17 astronauts snapped this picture.
It gave people the first look at their home planet as a single entity.
Last week, scientists at NASA released this. The shot is compiled from data from NASA's VIRS instrument, which orbits the Earth about every 100 minutes, taking measurements of light coming off the planet. That can be translated into ribbons of imagery like this, and then into one of these. And this is just the latest in NASA's Earth from Space album, which may be one of the most mind-expanding collections of images in human history. Then in 2002, Blue Marble 2.0, NASA's Rob Simmons made this. Simmons' job is...
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
That's what this is. A composite of data sets from several different instruments translated into a picture.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They stashed the clouds for later, went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it's a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Then?
There was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space, but I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Excuse me, I'm allergic to bullshit. Not having one authentic picture of the Earth alone is a huge red flag.
Christoph, let me ask you, why do you think that Truman has never come close to discovering the true nature of his world until now?
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
The flat Earth model is a working model. It's by no means definitive due to the nature of this massive cover-up. For the past 500 years, we've been completely buying into the Copernicus heliocentric model. But what we do know about the flat Earth is based on the azimuthal equidistant map that seems to be working out. This map goes as far back as the year 1000 and possibly earlier, now used as an official map by the U.S. Geological Survey and also as the official logo for the United Nations. Is this our real home being hidden from us in plain sight? I think it is. The first thing a lot of people say is, where's the edge? Well, look at this map where Antarctica is a 360-degree ice barrier that holds the water in. These ice walls are real, and they stand 150 feet above the surface of the water. Then you need to understand that there is no independent access to Antarctica. Average people can only go there on a guided tour. It has no towns, no cities, and no permanent residences. What's past the 150-foot ice wall is anyone's guess. How far the ice extends, how it terminates, and what exists beyond it. The Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959 by 12 nations and more later on, states that Antarctica is for peaceful purposes only. No military activities, just scientific research and government exploration. Expeditions by any party must be discussed in advance. It's the longest and most successful treaty between nations. The treaty also states that there are ships, stations, and equipment to ensure compliance of the treaty. Sounds like military activity to me. Anyway, so this azimuthal equidistant map appears to be correct for the most part. Over the centuries, there's been other maps that look pretty close to it as well. Let's look at an interesting story that was recently in the news that supports this flat map. A woman gave birth on a flight from Bali to Los Angeles, so the flight made an emergency landing in Alaska. Here's what it would look like on a globe. Now, here's what it would look like on a flat Earth. Which one makes more sense? Exactly. A big issue I was having with the flat Earth for the longest time was the sunrise and sunsets. I realized that it was a perspective issue. First, you must understand that the sun is not 93 million miles away. If it was, we would never see anything like this here. This is concentrated because it's closer. It's much more probable that the sun is only a few thousand miles away and that it's the same size as the moon. Once you comprehend this, all of the sudden, solar eclipses make sense. Holy fucking shit! Something that makes sense! Okay, so the sun is close, which gives it the ability to spotlight the area that it's over, and when it leaves your view, due to perspective, it takes the light with it. There is a generous amount of light where the sun is at, but since it's so close, it doesn't spread its light like it would if it were bigger and further. The sun circumnavigates the Earth like a huge clockwork. Sometimes that takes a while to sink in. All right, let's talk about the Coriolis effect. The Coriolis effect states that when a moving object leaves the ground, the Earth continues to rotate, meaning that when shooting a gun at a certain distance, the bullet would be a little off due to the Earth's rotation. If that's the case, then airplanes would have to account for the Coriolis effect, but they don't. This is only a few things that work better on a flat, motionless Earth. Do you need 100 excuses as to why you're not feeling any motion or seeing any curvature? Are those excuses easier to believe? Or is it easier to use Occam's razor and go with what our senses are telling us? The Earth is flat and not spinning.
Now, real quick, let's kind of just explain the Coriolis effect in layman's terms. The Coriolis effect is the effect that when the bullet leaves the barrel of the gun, it is actually leaving the surface of the Earth. So as the bullet leaves the barrel of the gun, the Earth is still rotating, and the bullet is not rotating with the Earth. So the Earth will actually rotate out from underneath of the bullet while it is in flight.
Yep. It would be impossible for the plane to land in one piece if the Earth was spinning. Is outer space even real? No.
This one is a touchy subject. This whole fucking video is a touchy subject. So anyway, this one's hard to get across to people big time. But outer space is up for debate. Space programs are compartmentalized, and most astronauts are Freemasons that have to swear an oath of secrecy when dealing with the so-called missions. The thing is that there is so much footage of NASA and other space agencies making mistakes. Sometimes we could see bubbles in the spacewalks. Sometimes we could see harnesses and wires on the people in the International Space Station. The permed hair that moves nothing like it would in zero gravity. These are huge red flags, not to mention the Van Allen radiation belt. The Van Allen radiation belt is a layer of energetic charged particles that is held in place around a magnetized planet such as Earth by the planet's magnetic field. Sounds kind of like a dome if there is one. Oddly enough, one of NASA's employees admitted that this radiation belt needs to be figured out before humans could pass through it. Listen closely.
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Let's talk about satellites. We've already discussed how there are no pictures of the Earth. So are satellites even real? Not likely. Ground towers are built all over the world and are more than adequate to relay our television, radio, and cell phone service.
All GPS is done through land-based towers, and things like Google Earth are taken with high-altitude planes, and most of them are just done with cars on street level. Did you know that satellites were actually invented by Arthur C. Clarke? the science fiction author.
I didn't know that.
They shortly became science fact after that. The geostationary satellite, look it up. It was created by a science fiction author. And then within a decade, NASA claims to have sent a real one up there. And ever since then, that's where we get all our communications from.
So if satellites were real, we would constantly hear stories of them being hit by meteors or comets, and that doesn't happen. No one's ever lost their direct TV feed during the Perseids meteor shower because one of the meteors knocked out one of the satellites. It doesn't happen, it's never happened, and it won't happen. And that to me tells me there is no satellites. You would constantly be worried about them, and you would constantly hear about them having something happen, and it's so rare that you hear that.
So you may or may not have heard the term cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when new information challenges your beliefs and you just can't let go. It's just like that scene in The Matrix.
No. I don't believe it. It's not possible. Stop. Let me out! Let me out! I want out!
We have a rule. We never free a mind once it's reached a certain age.
It's not easy going through this kind of deception and then realizing that your whole life was spent thinking and believing one thing when it's the opposite. Nobody wants to feel like they've been fooled, like they've been had. I'm a human just like you, and I never would have thought in my wildest dreams that I'd be on this kind of journey. This journey of realization and reckoning. This journey of putting everything I know to the side so I can absorb information that seems ridiculous, yet so sensible. It's time to say fuck it. It's not your fault that you were wrong. It's not your fault that you fell for a trick that the whole world also fell for. I'm right here with you. It's time to take down your mental barrier and recognize that we have a lot of work to do in order to find out what this place really is and why we're here. It's not to be slaves of the dollar. It's not to be slaves of the clock. Our reality is being manipulated and hidden from us. Please wake up and try to awaken those around you. So how did this happen? Okay, let's start in the classroom. The first time anybody enters a school classroom, they are introduced to the globe model of the Earth. This three-dimensional scale model of the Earth that has never been proven was invented in the 1400s. Fast forward to 1927, a big budget movie company called Universal Pictures came out with its movie intro, and guess what? The spinning ball Earth still hasn't been proven. This is 30 years before NASA was founded. Over the years, Universal kept coming out with similar logo intros, and to this day, we see the spinning ball Earth before many of the movies that we watch. Besides, there are countless movies about outer space that use the same model. We have been indoctrinated, and it's as simple as that. For the spherical Earth to remain unproven after this long is a wake-up call to everybody that lives here. We need to shed this programming right here, right now, and find out what the fuck is going on. No more embracing this sick illusion that was created by psychopaths. I'm going to keep searching for answers and trying to make something happen. All I want to know is, who's coming with me?
We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
I'd like to be an explorer, like the Great Magellan.
Oh, you're too late. There's really nothing left to explore.
Right before your surgery, I asked if you had packed your cell phone, and you said, which one?
When? Skylar, I was medicated. I mean, I could have said the world was flat.
You know what I think? I think you accidentally told the truth.
The world was flat.
You know what I think? You accidentally told the truth.
The world was flat.
You know what I think? You accidentally told the truth.
Really, the evidence shows me that it's flat and stationary. There is much more evidence based on just pure analysis that it's flat and stationary.
So it's not actually a sphere. It's oblate, and officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby is a good word. It's like pear-shaped.
Really, we're in big trouble as far as lack of critical thinking and lack of free thinking. We really are in big trouble. We need to step it up as far as the awakening goes. You really need to put your thinking cap on, and you really need to start to look at these things and look at them with a critical eye and with a critical mind.
And evidences are not proofs. In order to bring the light of knowledge on the true shape of the Earth, researchers of Dakila and Ziggurat's Technology Center joined with other scientists in an independent research that lasted 7 years, seeking scientific and definitive proof to demonstrate that Earth is indeed round or has another shape. In 2011, researchers from Dakila and the Ziggurat's Technological Center with the objective of proving the real shape of our planet. It was needed to prepare and carry out different experiments and data collection at several locations around the planet. Likewise, several experts were consulted on the possibility of the Earth not being spherical.
As is known by all mankind, the Earth has a spherical shape. And as a geographer and cartographer, it is difficult for me to accept that the Earth is not a sphere. All this knowledge here, and the perception of man thinking and acting according to these rules here. He is fixed to this model. It is an idea that totally contradicts the concepts we have today of the sphericity of the Earth. It's really difficult. I, as an engineer, and I deal with the exact sciences. That's where we come from since childhood with these concepts. It is difficult for us to have another vision of this reality that we have since childhood. Because exclusively studying through this model, the struggle is very great. Because the amount of technological and scientific knowledge there is to ensure that these ideas are true is very great. The round Earth, with mathematical formulas all operative, in aviation, aeronautics, astronautics, and in satellites, all being placed with this formula. And this has been working. Water does not leave the Earth because it has a central force pulling it towards the center of the Earth, which is gravity. It makes us think that the Earth's gravity would not be the center of it. That's why I say it's a very shocking idea. So, when we deal with abstract things from the past, historical things, so there are several theories with a concrete thing settled within scientific knowledge. It is difficult. And when you break those pillars that sustain, what sustains? What sustains humanity are these pillars of knowledge that you have. So when you break one of such pillars, you dismantle a base that is considered to be true and scientific, where all knowledge of the Earth is based on that information. You break that paradigm, and it's really going to be a total unbalance for the people. I'm ready to be convinced that what I know is not worth more.
Urandir and the researchers from Dakila and the Ziggurats Technological Center evaluated all possibilities for the realization of the scientific experiments in order to find proofs that determined the real shape of the Earth.
We did dozens of experiments. We will only present 7, as it was enough to determine the real shape of the planet. We use the methodology of Lilarial science because the results are much more precise. Most of our research was done in the waters because it makes up 70% of the planet's surface.
The first chosen experiment was to determine the curvature of the horizon at water level.
Let's record one of the main tests on the sphericity of the Earth. And this test with the respect to the masts of the ships, the distance that it is away from the coast, precisely to know if there is sphericity, if there is angulation in the Earth. The lower the humidity in the air, the further we can see. And the higher the humidity, the more distortions occur in our view. So the places to be chosen to do the tests have to be of very low humidity. The tests will prove that if the Earth is spherical, the waters will follow the curvature.
The first site chosen to start the experiments was Lagoa dos Patos in Rio Grande do Sul.
We are in Lagoa dos Patos, and there is a team. They are mounting a telescope with a great capacity of visualization and must follow the 2 boats that we will see in sequence. This image should also be registered by the cameras that are installed on the edge of the beach. We start from now on this new phase of the research, intending to travel a distance of about 40 kilometers over the lagoon, trying to show people there is a strait in this lagoon. That is, there is a flatness. And this is an objective today. One of the objectives that we will try to show, this flatness of the waters that puts in question the issue of the curvature of the globe. And the function of the ground crew is trying to perceive this displacement, to map and to generate a visual image of it.
The researchers mounted a Newtonian telescope specially designed for the experiment, with a high-definition camera attached to its eyepiece to register the entire process. The teams used high-tech positioning equipment to ensure the accuracy of the results.
Quando chegar lá, a gente passa a coordenada, mas a gente consegue localizar.
This same experiment was carried out in other places. One of them was in the Strait of Gibraltar in France.
We are here in the south of France, a seaside town called Le Bagarre. We set out together with the French researchers, coordinators of an association called Project Energy Action here in France, trying to prove the veracity of this seemingly absurd theory. I had the opportunity to participate in the phase of the tests that were held in Europe. It would be the filming of a boat, as far as possible from the coast. We find it very interesting the chance to be able to touch on a controversial subject, and to be part of these experiences, to demonstrate something that science does not accept today. It would be filmed through a telescope. We also used a camera attached to its lens, so we could film the experiment effectively.
This experiment was also carried out in Brazil at the Três Marias Dam in Minas Gerais. And another team carried out the same experiment on the beach of Santos, on the coast of Sao Paulo.
There we divided the teams in two. One stayed on the shore and the other went on a boat out at sea.
We brought a Newtonian telescope. We were also using a total station.
A gente está gravando vocês aqui.
We are recording you here.
Is that so?
Tamo dando zoom aí em vocês.
We're zooming in on you.
Another telescope experiment was realized at Lake Titicaca in Peru.
We are here on Amantani Island, on Lake Titicaca in Peru. We'll take target from this point to the Cordillera Blanca, which is the border with Peru and Bolivia that is exactly 110 kilometers from here. If the Earth was spherical, we will not be able to see.
At this distance, the curvature of the Earth would have a height of 237 meters, the equivalent of a building of 79 floors.
The cameras won't be able to get it, nor will we see at all with the naked eye. We will not see the other side, but with telescopes we do. One of the best points you could have in the world to really register the Earth's sphericity is on this location.
Would the team be able to see the other shore of the lake through the telescope? Back in the experiment with the boats, the researchers observed that after some time following the boats with the naked eye, they began to disappear on the horizon. First, the hull. Soon after, the boat was no longer visible. And finally, the mast goes down until it disappears completely, as the spherical Earth theory explains. When the boats reached a certain distance, it was no longer possible to see them with the naked eye. So does this mean that the Earth is really spherical? Another experiment was carried out using radio waves. Teams were separated at a distance of 14 kilometers on opposite sides of the lagoon.
Using the radio equipment, we use directional antennas at high frequency, parabolic antennas that concentrate the radio frequency beam, one directed to the other at different points.
The two antennas receive and transmit radio waves at the same time, and any obstacle between them would block the communication. They were meticulously positioned and directed to establish communication.
Why they want a bunch of 5G towers everywhere.
The antennas were positioned at 1 meter from the water level at a distance of 14 kilometers. At this distance, the curvature of the Earth in a spherical model would generate an obstacle with a height of 3.84 meters, the equivalent of a 2-story house, which would prevent the communication. Could researchers have established communication? Another performed experiment was to measure the flatness of the waters with the use of light. The researchers opted for the use of a laser beam because its beam of light propagates in a linear way and can reach long distances with minimal loss of potency. The laser experiment consisted of 2 teams positioned on opposite sides. One team emits a laser beam parallel to the water toward another team. In the spherical model of the Earth, it would be impossible for the laser beam to be seen on the other side, since the supposed curvature of the Earth would be an obstacle in its trajectory. However, if the Earth is not spherical and the waters don't follow its curvature, it would be possible to visualize the laser light on the other side, for there would be no obstacles in its path. For more efficient results, this experiment with a laser beam was performed at a great distance, in the tens of kilometers, because the greater the distance, the greater the curvature of the Earth would be in the spherical model between the 2 points, which would prevent the laser beam from reaching the other side.
As we had some difficulty in getting high-power equipment, we decided to design and build our own equipment with a great power that could achieve a far greater reach than the laser equipments found in the market.
The device emits several beams of light and is set to reach the programmed distance without expanding, with the focus point on an object on the other side. 2 points were chosen at the coast of Sao Paulo, one on the beach of Caraguatatuba and another on the beach of Ilhabela. The team prepared the equipment during the afternoon to conduct the experiment at night. The devices are positioned at a height of 1 meter above the water level, directed towards the team on the opposite side.
The whiteboard or light receiver is 1 meter from sea level. The distance is 15,000 meters, 15 kilometers.
With the equipment ready, it's time to start the experiment.
South, 43 degrees.
This is the moment of truth. If the light is not visible on the opposite shore, it will be an indication of the sphericity of the Earth.
Down. Try to go down more. All right, this position is good. Try to level it out for now. There, a little bit more, a little bit, there.
Did the laser light hit the other side, which would question the theory of the spherical Earth? The team's next step was to repeat this same experiment over longer distances. To continue the research, Lake Titicaca was chosen on the border between Peru and Bolivia. One team was in the town of Juli in Peru, and another on the beach in Copacabana, Bolivia.
Lake Titicaca has a width of 65 kilometers and a length of 165 kilometers. Other people say that the lake has spines, but it has not. It's a flat surface. It is a mirror Lake Titicaca here in Peru. If you look, for example, 30 to 40 kilometers, the lake looks flat.
Will the researchers be able to prove the flatness of Lake Titicaca?
We got here on the site, right on the side of the road. Down there in the center of the display is the town of Copacabana. For me, from what we are seeing here, the theory of water flatness is very convincing. But we will seek more evidence. It needs more results. We are Team 2. Team number 1 is in a town called Juli, also on the beach of Lake Titicaca. So here we are on the same level as them. There, team number 1 is approximately 2 meters above the level of Lake Titicaca. We are here 1 meter and 35 from the sand, and about 40 centimeters from the water level, as you can see there.
The teams are in position. All equipment has been checked, and the experiment begins.
That's good. Leave it there. We're pointing the laser.
The laser is then fired.
It hit it. There. To our right. To our right. A little bit to the left. Right there. We will blink.
Could the laser be visible on the opposite sides, which would prove the flatness of the waters? An unprecedented experiment developed by the researchers was to measure the geodesic curvature between 2 buildings over a long distance using high-precision GPS.
Considering the round planet, you have to mark a point from one extreme to the other, from a certain distance, precisely to prove mathematically whether the Earth is round or not. So we got two cities, far away. We take two buildings, one in a city in the south and one in a city in the north. This one in the south and this one in the north. What happens? If we measure this distance here at the base of the buildings, if the Earth is really spherical, when we measure buildings of the same height, when measuring the top, there has to be a difference, because if the Earth is spherical, it must have a superior length than the base.
To carry out the experiment of the geodesic curvature, two buildings were chosen of the same height and sea level, as far apart from each other as possible. High-precision GPS measurements are done at the base and at the top of each building. According to the theory of the spherical Earth, the distance of the measurements of the bases must be different than the measurements of the top, even in a few meters.
What the hell that was?
But if the measurements are equal, this would show that the Earth has no curvature. In order for the results to come out with the best possible precision, the CTZ researchers invited INCRA, the National Institute of Colonization and Agrarian Reform. This is one of the most respected organizations in Brazil and one of the best in the world in the area of topography. INCRA engineers and technicians met with the researchers from the CTZ and Daquila to decide on the realization of the experiment, which would be evidence or not of the sphericity of the Earth.
Analytically, we will see if really this line here will be perpendicular in relation to this horizontal distance between the 2 points. There probably, in relation to the extension of this perpendicular line, to that baseline, I believe it will be larger.
In the view of the INCRA technicians, the measures will be different. If this is true, it'll be one of the strongest evidences that the Earth is actually spherical. The first building chosen was at Torres Beach in Rio Grande do Sul. The second building was chosen in Natal, in Rio Grande do Norte, at a distance of 3,050 kilometers from each other, with the same altitude in relation to sea level.
This is a GPS L1, L2 signal receiver. We'll do a reading from this point to chart the base. And from that base, we'll do the vertical readings relating to our goal. And afterwards, we will use another equipment, which is a total station, to make the readings of the vertical and horizontal angles.
To what conclusion did INCRA surveyors arrive in relation to the curvature of the Earth? To carry out the last experiments, the researchers invited the consulted specialists at the start of the research to accompany and participate in the tests. Paulo Cesar Parra, civil engineer and geotechnical engineer, and a specialist in dam projects.
It's difficult. As an engineer, and I deal with the exact sciences, we carry this from childhood with these concepts. It is difficult to have another insight of this reality that we have since childhood.
Mauro Diaz, geographer and cartographer, specializing in aerophotogrammetry.
As is known by all mankind, the Earth has a spherical shape. And for me as a geographer and cartographer, it is difficult to accept that the Earth would not be a sphere.
In Minas Gerais, Brazil, the researchers performed the experiment of the geodesic curvature in the waters, accompanied by the guests.
We are here in the reservoir of the Trem Marae hydroelectric plant. We have the complete team. We are going to start the verification of the horizontality of the water here in the reservoir. It is a large reservoir. We are in a stretch that will give us up to 18 kilometers. The test aims, in other words, the following. The dam has a certain level. If the level GPS measures give the same, this means that there is no curvature of the Earth. If the measurements are different, then this means that there really exists an Earth curvature in relation to sea level. We are with a geodetic GPS already installed here. The surveyor is now going to another point, taking another point to start a triangulation, thus verifying through this process, verifying the horizontality of the water. This first point in the elevation in relation to the sea level is of 556 meters altitude, so we're going to hit more than 3 points. This equipment, the geodetic GPS, we have two devices. One installed here to get this point, and the other goes to the other points. We get 3 points, all at the water level, and check the level of that point. The accuracy of this equipment for this distance, a distance of 10 to 20 kilometers, is around a few centimeters.
Engineer Paulo Cesar Parra supervised the entire experiment thoroughly.
Okay, we'll pass the coordinates now. We are now here at point B, 7.5 kilometers from the starting point, and there we had 556 meters altitude on the lagoon level.
What will be the results of the 3 points measured by the researchers? Will they prove the flatness of the waters or the sphericity of the Earth? The researchers returned to the Tres Marias Dam, together with the guests, to carry out the experiment with a laser.
We are here at the Trem Marae Dam trying to explain various phenomena. Since we have an open mind, we have to do an investigation. A research with several experiences to explain these variables. We are going to point B, 18 kilometers from point A, where the first group is. We will perform the laser test at this distance just to check the Earth's curvature. We are here in the night experiment at the reservoir of the Trem Marae Dam. You can see the boats that brought us. Here in the lake, we are on the shore of the lake. The positioning of the laser is here by the lake, a meter or so from the water level. Whereas the other second laser, that is also in the same position, exactly 1.5 meters from the water level of the reservoir. We are in good climate. There is no wind, which greatly impairs water evaporation that impairs visualization. So the weather is relatively cold, so there is little evaporation as well. So, very favorable for our job.
Equipment positioned, the experiment starts. All experiments performed. The moment of truth has come. To what conclusion did the researchers arrive in relation to the experiments with ships? The researchers realized that after some time looking at the boats with the naked eye, they began to disappear on the horizon. First, the hull, then it was no longer possible to see the boat, and finally, the mast lowered until it disappeared completely, as the spherical Earth theory explains.
Watching the boats with the naked eye, the initial impression is that they were disappearing, as if descending behind the horizon line.
When the boats reached a certain distance, it was no longer possible to see them with the naked eye.
For a moment, we were a little frustrated to be in the place to prove the sphericity of the air, as with the naked eye, we could easily come to that conclusion.
Does this mean that the Earth is even spherical? With the loss of eye contact, it's time for the team to use optical instruments in an attempt to still see the boats. If the boats are still visible through the equipment, it's proof that they have not traveled below the horizon. And to everyone's surprise, the boats were still there, visible. The researchers realized that the images of the equipment presented some optical phenomena.
During the experiments, we perceived the formation of optical phenomena that we initially attribute to the Fata Morgana effect, which is the refraction of light in the layers of the atmosphere.
This phenomenon is very common in deserts. There are the famous mirages. The mirage is the Fata Morgana effect.
A formation of images occurs, virtual images, images that are not real at specific points. Through the observations and the collected data during the experiments, we were able to determine that the optical phenomena had a certain pattern. After some distance, we began to have a visual loss, which increased to a distance where our direct vision was compromised.
When we lost the view with the naked eye, we used optical equipments, in this case the telescope, and the boat was still there. Only we realized that it was an inverted image, a mirror image.
We realized that the real image was practically disappearing, and we had the formation of an inverted virtual image, an inverted mirror image, when the angle of incidence of light on the surface, in this case water, tended to zero. This occurs because of the mirroring effect, where the reflection of the image occurs.
This phenomenon we recorded for the first time in Lagos dos Patos in Rio Grande do Sul. During the research, we sensed that each state of experiments was complementing the other.
With the unfolding of the experiments, we perceived that the optical instruments amplified the visual phenomena.
In the case of the use of Newtonian telescopes, in which its optics, which is of extreme precision, amplifies thousands of times the capacity of the human eye, could see things that we did not see.
This led to amplifying the visual phenomena we observed during the execution of the experiments. We deepened the studies, and we could determine that most optical phenomena, which are attributed to the refraction of light, called Fata Morgana effect, actually occurs by reflection. It is a reflective process of light on a surface with an angle tending to zero. With the observations we make, we have been able to promote a new physical theory that explains the Fata Morgana effect from a new optic, a new point of view. We call it the theory of optics applied to visual phenomena.
This conclusion helped us explain three phenomena that we know are illusions. Why the boat seems to disappear going down the horizon line, why first fades the hull and then the boat, and why when an observer is taller can see farther.
We conclude then that boats don't descend at the horizon, and that we lose the ability to observe them, to see them in function of an optical phenomenon.
With this experiment, one of the main arguments of the spherical Earth theory, that boats disappear on the horizon due to the curvature, is totally refuted. This is the first proof of the flatness of the waters. Among the long-distance viewing experiments performed with telescopes, the one with the greatest impact was at Lake Titicaca, where the team tried to record images at 110 kilometers. The site was chosen due to the low humidity of the air at certain times of the year, which is a prime factor for the result.
We are talking here with a boatman of the boat May 3. He is an inhabitant of the island of the Uros. He is from the Aymara civilization. Is it possible to see the other side of the margin? Or is this not possible?
Yes, it is possible. Always because our lake, we think, is like a table.
How many kilometers do you see?
I can see almost 60 or 50 kilometers.
Normal, no binoculars, nothing?
Yes, normal, without binoculars.
With the telescope, the team was able to record images at a distance of more than 100 kilometers, which would be impossible in the theory of a spherical Earth, as the curvature would have a height of 237 meters, equivalent to a 79-story building. This experiment is yet another proof that the Earth cannot be a sphere. And the result of the experiment with radio waves? The researchers used directional parabolic antennas, where in the spherical Earth model, communication would be impossible, as the minimum obstacle would preclude this, since at the distance of the experiment, the curvature of the Earth would generate an obstacle of 3.84 meters in height.
We have connected.
Got it. We're with connection here. It's responding. The machine is responding. Returning. I'm having connection to your computer there. We have a ping back here. The connection is established. The signal that we wanted, we could scan there and managed to find it here. Communication was established. It has been proven that at this distance, we have been able to establish communication. We know that any interference in the way would mean not achieve communication. The test with radio waves was, let's say, unusual, because at the time, we set our antennas, and with the design of the spherical Earth, we started to work with almost complete obstruction of the Fresnel zone, which is the zone, the region where the propagation of radio waves occurs, which would make communication impossible between the 2 points. However, with the idea of leveled waters, we would already have approximately 50% of the Fresnel zone unobstructed, which could allow communication between the 2 points, even if precarious. And how it happened.
This is yet another proof of the flatness of the waters, refuting the spherical model of the Earth. What about the geodetic curvature experiment performed on the buildings? Measurements were done of the bases and tops of 2 buildings, one in Torres, Rio Grande do Sul, and another in Natal, Rio Grande do Norte, 3,050 kilometers apart from each other. According to the theory of the spherical Earth, the distance of the measurements of the bases must be different than the measurements of the top, even in a few meters. But if the measurements are equal, this would show that the Earth has no curvature. Remembering the opinion of the INCRA engineers before the experiment,
Probably there will be in relation to the extension of this line, perpendicular to the baseline. I believe it will be longer.
Thinking of the Earth as a globe, the initial expectation was that the measurements were different.
But when the results arrived, the base and the top measurements were the same, showing that the 2 buildings are leveled upright. And here the opening angle, where we read the point here, the base of the building and its height. As we do this calculation here, on this plane, we will always find this distance here. On this plane, we will always find this distance here.
the identical measurements of the distance between the bases and the tops prove that between the 2 buildings there is no curvature, proving that the Earth has no spherical shape. In the experiment of the geodesic curvature in the water, 3 points were obtained with a high-precision GPS on the Tres Marias Dam in Minas Gerais, whose extension exceeds 70,000 meters.
This first point, the elevation in relation to sea level is at 556 meters altitude.
The second point also presented the same result, 556 meters of altitude. If the third point were different, the water would be following the curvature of the Earth. If the measurements are the same, it will be proven that there is no curvature, but indeed flatness in the waters. And the measure of the third point surprised the researchers.
Here we also obtained the same measure, 556 meters at the level of the lagoon. We analyzed the data collected by the equipment, and all points show the same result, the same altitude, thus showing that the water in the dam remains level. These data overthrow the theory of sphericity, because according to this theory, the water should follow the curvature of the Earth. Only in a curve there is no level.
The 3 altitude measurements were identical, proving the leveling of the water, proving that the Earth has no spherical shape. And what is the result of the laser experiments? Did the team see the laser light on the other side?
We are here in the nocturnal experiment in the Tres Marais Reservoir. We are on the shore of the lake. The positioning of the laser is here by the lake, a meter or so from the water level where the second laser is. It is also in the same position, exactly 1.5 meters from the water level of the reservoir. As you can see, the 2 devices are communicating at a distance of 18 kilometers. We have successfully done an experiment today, and we are proving that the Earth does not have the format that science believes it has. So as we are at 18 kilometers, there is no water level difference from here to the other crew that is 18 kilometers away. It's exactly level. On this distance, there should be a visual obstruction by virtue of the curvature of approximately 6 meters, and we were able to get the signal from a laser cannon from the other shore at 18 kilometers on a little more than a meter from the level of the lagoon. This is the ultimate test. There is no curvature.
To guarantee the accuracy of the result, the researchers decided to conduct a surprise experiment. With the team still in place, a beam of light was lit that should be visible at 18 kilometers on the side where the team of surveyors was, who used a total station. At that distance, the Earth curvature would have risen 6.3 meters, equivalent to a 3-story building.
Do you see? Yes. Down. Can you see? Yes. Down. Can you see? Can you see? Yes. I am at water level. At water level. So okay, I will write down and you read the angles and the coordinates. There you take that height where it was blinking at the water level. It's on water level. But on how many meters high? 0. It's blinking in the water, right? It's in the water. 10 centimeters from the water. Okay, so I'm going to write down the angle here. Wait, Wilson.
During the experiment, a laser was added without warning the topographers.
Do you see any other light? I see it. I did see. I saw a laser now. He did see. He saw the laser. It die off. Lower the laser. All right, wait a minute, Wilson. Now I saw the laser. Did you see the laser? Not now. I saw the laser there. Lower a little bit. Do you see the light still? I see the laser there. Do you see the light still? I see the laser there. That's good. Just a minute. Oh, Randy, what's going on here? Dude, it's over. It's done. At the water level. It was there at 2 meters and something. Well, now it's ruined. Now, so anything else needs to be done. We can go, right? We are with a telescope. We have a precision level, an optical level, with a topographer. We have a total station, which is a topography equipment that is used for measurements and level determination. So we are here 18 kilometers marked with a GPS on an island, on a point of Lagoa, 18 kilometers from the topography equipment there with the crew. So we put a light beam, and then the topography equipment can see the light at water level. The light placed on the water level can be visualized by the topography equipment that is positioned 18 kilometers.
And the engineer remained perplexed by the outcome of the experiment.
We can go, right?
This is unquestionable proof that the Earth is not a sphere, for the waters are level. And the result of the laser experiment carried out at Lake Titicaca.
It is hitting the hill on the hill. Look over there. It is hitting a tree above us here. Look at theirs. Look at theirs. Are you pointing yours too? We're seeing. We see yours. It's just too high. It's very high. Look there. You saw. In this direction. It made it. There, it appeared again. Go. There, it made it again. That's it. Stop there. More to the left. Stop there. Stop. Through light here. It is illuminating here. It is moving there too. Here it is illuminating everything. We have already done the first tests, and the laser of team number 1 has already appeared here in the treetops that are on our side. Then the trees here have about 2 meters, 2.5 meters. So there we start directly discarding the hypothesis of the Earth being spherical, because we are 35 kilometers away from team number 1 in a straight line from end to end, on the lake, on lake level. And according to the theory of spherical Earth, that 35 kilometers should give at least 23 meters and 98 centimeters of Earth's curvature. So a light communication would be impossible, as we just have had. The result was positive here. We could see the laser on the other team there, and they could see us too. More than 30 kilometers, so there was no curvature. Total flatness. The research here was excellent. Here with this laser visibility test, Team 2 and Team 1 at 35 kilometers. There really was an unusual commutation at a distance of 35 kilometers, and that there should be an arc of approximately 24 meters. Neither group 1 or 2 should be seeing the lights.
But how could one project a laser beam from one shore to another, 35 kilometers away, if, in the theory of the spherical Earth, there would be a curvature of 24 meters in height, and the laser equipment was positioned at 2 meters high, parallel to the water level?
Lake Titicaca has a width of 65 kilometers and a length of 165 kilometers. Other people say that the lake has spines, but it has not. It's a flat surface. It is a mirror Lake Titicaca here in Peru. If you look, for example, 30 to 40 kilometers, the lake looks flat.
This is yet another unquestionable proof of the flatness of the waters, which definitively overturns the theory of the sphericity of the Earth. Gravity is the theory that science considers as the main factor to keep everything in harmony on a spherical planet.
Water does not come off the Earth because it has a central force pulling towards the center of the Earth, which is gravity. It does not exist. According to the experiments, gravity does not exist. From the fundamentals of nature, plumb and level overthrow the theory of gravity.
The plumb is an instrument used to gauge verticality. It is of fundamental use in civil construction to guarantee the verticality of the buildings.
This tool we use to get the wall in the right plumb because it cannot be out of plumb because the wall can fall. So this plumb is used for this, to keep it right and steady on the plumb. Neither there nor here, right there in the plumb.
The use of the plumb is the only way to ensure that construction is being erected in vertical alignment. The level is an instrument used to measure inclinations and is fundamental to ensure horizontality. It's used extensively in the areas of civil construction, surveying, photography, and astronomy, among others. The most common model is the bubble.
Any construction has to have level and plumb, because if it gets out of plumb and level, it can fall. That house can fall. This equipment is a system of communicating vessels and is used in the laboratory to demonstrate the behavior of water leveling. In whatever position we place the system, the water that is inside will always search its level. This behavior of the leveling can be proven not only in laboratory, but we can prove this in field experiments in ponds, lakes, and the seas.
This is a micro version of what we find all over the planet, leveled waters.
By verifying that the water remains level, both in micro and macro environments, it's also verified that gravity does not exist, because if this force existed, the waters would follow the curvature of the planet. But then, what forces act to maintain harmony on a non-spherical planet? Researchers from Dakila and the Ziggurats Technology Center have concluded that among the fundamentals of nature, the four main forces that acting together hold us firm to the ground are magnetism, density, pressure, and light. The researchers called this set of forces MDPL. Among the four MDPL forces, magnetism, in contrast to what science considers, is one of the strongest forces that act on Earth. It's the main force that keeps everything in balance, from the bonds of an atom to the Earth's magnetic field. One way to study the performance of the magnetic field of bodies is to perform a simple experiment where we transform into mechanical waves the kinetic energy produced by the magnetic field in an object. This can be reproduced by throwing an object into the water. Whatever the shape of the object, the waves produced will always be circular, as they are modulated by the Earth's magnetic field. Note that regardless of the shape of the object, the waves produced in the water will always have circular patterns. This happens because the waves in the water are being modulated by the influence of the Earth's magnetic field.
It does not exist. According to these experiments, gravity does not exist. But going even further, to prove or to sustain the sphericity of the Earth, without people falling, buildings, animals, constructions, the waters especially going off, flying out into space, to justify people stay fixed on the Earth's surface without being thrown off by the spin of the planet, they created a magical force called gravity. But this magical force is torn down by the plumb and level, because the physical behavior of water is to seek leveling. Or is physics wrong too? If the physical behavior of waters, according to our physics, is to seek leveling, how will it fix itself to a ball on a sphere without flying off? Space outside without seeking its level? So these are two contradictory things. And even more, to justify the seasons, they decided to tilt a ball 23 degrees. There is no way to tilt a ball, a sphere. Impossible. Let's see, how could a planet or a ball, a sphere, be tilted and waters not get off? But it has the imaginary axis. The imaginary axis, even if there were a physical axis, what would be inclined is the axis and not the sphere. Any position that places the sphere, there is no way to tilt it but the axis. An imaginary axis. That is an illusion. If it is imaginary, it's an illusion. So it's another contradiction. They created this axis that does not exist to justify the seasons in a sphere, in a globular model. That's not possible. Well, in a sphere we certainly do not live. Because the physical behavior of the waters does not match the reality of the facts. And through the plumb and level, this theory is totally overthrown. Extinct. What would Earth be like? The first sight, the Earth is absolutely flat. But this plane goes where? Is it square? Is it a circle?
Looking from above, the impression you have is that the Earth is flat.
Scientists of the past had only the eyes to observe and the reasoning to create possibilities. The older ancients used a model of the flat Earth, square Earth, triangular, and geoid. Later, other scientists defined the most suitable model would be spherical, geoid, putting a stake at one point and another at 800 kilometers. But he did not take into account the altitude, had no GPS, had nothing. So, there is really no way how these ideas, with the technology of today, can be considered, because everything we have today overthrows these theories. Any experiment today can prove that the globe doesn't exist. It's impossible.
But then, how can we determine the real shape of the planet? The CTZ researchers collected information on the movement of the sun, the moon, and the stars in different parts of the planet. In this research, which lasted several years, images were recorded by cameras installed in all these places during the day and at night.
We found several differences in the trajectory of the sun. One of the most significant was between Australia and Argentina, which are in the same tropic.
While in Argentina, the sun moves at about 180 degrees. In Australia, it moves almost 270 degrees, which would be impossible in a spherical Earth model. Another significant example was in the Canary Islands, where a time-lapse of the stars showed a circular movement incompatible with the spherical model of the Earth.
This movement would only be justified if the place were near the poles in a spherical Earth, which is not the case.
We do not understand that with so many discrepancies we have found, And with the technology available today, no researcher, no scientist, no astronomer, no space agency in the world has perceived any of this.
The discrepancy in the comparison of the trajectory of the sun and the stars between the different points when related to its geographical position in the current world map allowed to generate a new geographical model of the continents. In this model, the continents present a size and position somewhat different from the current world map, having the North Pole to the center and the other continents around it. This new model was called convex Earth.
We call it convex Earth because the continents have a convex relief, starting at the sea level, rising to the highest point, and returning to the sea level.
According to altimetric analyses, all the continents present a convexity in their relief. According to the investigations, in the convex Earth, the magnetic field has the following layout, with the magnetic North Pole located in approximately the middle of the planet. Due to the magnetic field, anywhere on the surface of the planet, a compass will always point to the North Pole, as the South Pole represents its entire border. The magnetic field is also responsible for modeling the shape of our atmosphere, which takes the form of a plane convex lens. In this way, the atmosphere, formed by several gases and water in gaseous state, takes on the characteristic of a gigantic magnifying glass with a high degree of refraction, responsible for day and night. The following experiment simulates the behavior of day and night. We use a flat convex lens, a model of the continents, and an external light source simulating the sun. The result is a model of day and night in the corresponding time zones.
What helped us a lot in this research was the information we collected at our own astronomical observatory of the Ziggurat's Technology Center.
In this manner, the researchers concluded that the Earth is neither spherical nor geoid, but rather convex on the continents and flat in the waters. In this concept, the Earth is like a huge misshapen asteroid floating in space, surrounded by a very high layer of ice all along its edge. And how do satellites work in the convex Earth?
The magnetic field of our planet is primarily responsible for keeping the satellites in orbit. Briefly, there are two types of satellites, the geostationary and the orbitals. The geostationary ones are apparently fixed in a position over the surface of the planet. I say apparently because its orbit has to be corrected periodically. Orbital satellites are in orbit over the surface of the planet. They have different routes and altitudes according to each application.
And why do Earth photos taken from space show a curvature?
We launched several atmospheric probes, and we noticed that the images recorded in the upper layers of the atmosphere begin to show a certain curve after a certain height. This occurs in the high layers of the atmosphere, above the stratosphere, that is. In an airplane window, you would not notice this curvature. We observed that this effect does not occur due to the supposed curvature of the planet, but due to two factors. The first, due to the large flat convex lens of our atmosphere, and the second, according to the theory of curvature of light proposed by Albert Einstein, experimentally proven in 1919.
According to Albert Einstein's theory, the mass of a large object can create a curvature in space-time around it, able to bend the path of a beam of light in its vicinity. This phenomenon was called a gravitational lens.
A proven physical law has to work in both macro and micro environments. In this way, the gravitational lenses were proved through astronomical observations of objects of great mass. Then we conclude that the curvature of light in the high layers of the atmosphere also occurs as a function of the mass of the planet itself and of its magnetic field. We fabricate in our laboratory a physical gravitational lens capable of correcting the curvature of light in the upper layers of the atmosphere. In the experiments, we reached the degree of 0.22 for the total correction. This can also be proved through computational simulation. This law also applies to other bodies, such as the Moon, and the planets we know from our solar system. They apparently are spherical when viewed through telescopes, but we do not know their real format. That is, not always what we see represents reality.
To facilitate the understanding and comprehending of the new model of the planet, the researchers built scale models of both the spherical and convex models.
We made a scale model on geographic scale, just so that people have better clarity. A visualization that much more facilitates the understanding of what Earth really is. According to the report, according to all the research that has been carried out by our researchers, we have come to the conclusion of this format of the Earth.
We have been conditioned since childhood to accept that our planet has this round format. But if I say that there doesn't even exist a real image of our entire planet, to date, none of the space agencies of these institutions have managed to register an entire image of our planet. With all the technology and advances of science, this image does not yet exist. So how are they made, all those beautiful photographs we see on the internet, on posters, in films? This is very simple. Local images are taken, passed to a computer program, so they are manipulated, forged into a format we know today. This beautiful image, this photograph of the blue planet that we know, is nothing more than propaganda, just like many others we see daily. According to the research done, the calculations and measurements taken from our planet, this is not its format. The real format of our world is this. It is convex in its continents and leveled in the waters.
I was hired to build a model of the globe and the convex Earth. I never thought that the Earth would have a different shape. I always believed that the Earth was a globe, an entire round sphere, all tidy, perfect. After the completion of the construction, I see the importance that you cannot live on a planet without level and without plumb. I can only conclude that our planet is convex.
Just as the image of our planet is manipulated, the size and shapes of the continents also go through the same type of problem. They are very different from what we have custom to see on the world maps. Countries like Brazil or Russia, they gain land extensions much larger than are informed, which would explain so many miscalculations in land demarcations. Now, how do we come to this conclusion? It is very simple. If we take into account all the numerical data, all the measurements, the distances in the tropics, the meridians, the coasts, the extensions of land, and apply it on paper, taking all the details into consideration, all these continents suffer great distortions. Without exception, none of them stay out of it. Some, as I said, Brazil and Russia, suffer an increase in land, and others, like the United States, suffer a reduction.
During the surveys, strong evidence emerged of the existence of a new continent.
And what about the new continent that is far beyond our borders? We call it the Greater North. For those who are here in South America, heading north. So we call it the Greater North. With the help of Navy and Air Force officers, we were able to trace logistics towards the Greater North, towards Siberia, towards Russia. There were several factors that led us to perceive the existence of the new continent. With the launch of several atmospheric probes, equipped with cameras and other equipment, we were able to identify a territorial mass that is not included in our maps. It is not part of our current cartography. And, analyzing the images, mainly of the probes, we realized that it is part of a new continent, behind an immense layer of ice. After seeing these images, we directed our expeditions to the limits, where a human being or the autonomy of a ship were able to get. And we collected many evidences of dust on the ice, pollen, and other evidences that really brought us to the certainty of the evidence of this new continent. So there is no doubt that there really is a new continent, of new lands beyond the great mass of ice that impedes us to overcome. The research continues. We have not yet put our feet in this place. We only had observations from a distance, but we intend to get to this place as soon as possible.
A study performed by the CTZ on the Sun, Moon, and stars brought many answers regarding the positioning of the continents and the shape of the Earth. On the other hand, many questions have arisen.
Defining the real shape of the Earth was no easy task. But during research, we realized that the most difficult was yet to come. We realized that the sun brings forth many anomalies, its trajectory, the sunrise and sunset. We installed equipment in several countries in different parts of the planet. And all these equipments recorded different situations, anomalies that made us think. Rethink about trajectory and about what we learned about the sun. Its size, its distance to Earth does not match what we learn. It does not coincide the realities of the facts. It is an anomalous trajectory, totally different. It implies strong evidence that the sun is not a star the way we learn. It seems that it is much closer to the Earth than we think. Moreover, its trajectory is totally different. In several points, in several continents, the trajectory does not coincide with the reality, mainly in Australia and the Canary Islands. For example, in Australia, it rises and sets almost in the same place. In Antarctica, it's totally different. Some months of the year, it stays at a fixed point, practically without moving to either side. By observing all these anomalies around the world, we realize that there is a possibility that the solar system is totally different from what we have learned. It might not even exist. During these observations on the sun, we noticed that the moon has also a different behavior. Its trajectory is very similar to that of the sun, and its size is also completely atypical. The impression we have of the moon is that its size varies greatly, or its distance from the Earth varies greatly during its 28-day trajectory. There are days that it is closer, another more distant. It is as if its elliptic were totally within a different system of space out there, as if it were another reality. And because of the various anomalies observed in the sun, the moon, and the stars, we determined that the Earth doesn't spin. It does not have the spinning motion. We can consider a gentle wobble or a gentle tilt. But sure, the land does not spin. It is motionless. The mystery surrounding the sun is so complex that we will continue our studies. We will continue to research because it is in our interest to unravel the mystery that surrounds our star. And what changes in our lives? Knowing the real model of the Earth changes everything. Mainly in the academic system. Schools will have to redo all of their programming from their school curriculum, geography, astronomy, mathematics, physics, everything changes. Everything we learn, the whole context, especially with regard to the model. Cartography, air navigation, maritime, fuel economy, military strategies, meteorology, climate issues, all of that changes. Everything we learned was mistaken. Now this new reality brings us the light of knowledge, a new vision of our world, a new perception of all we have learned, and the transformation in our life of our cultural affairs. The perception of the world, of knowledge, all pillars of wisdom. There is an immense transformation for all people without exception, so surely a change for the better. But what changes most is the search for the truth. That is what motivated us to carry out all this research, the thirst to know, the thirst for knowledge.
And what about the specialists, Mauro Diaz and Paulo Parra, who accompanied the experiments?
I have always worked with the concept that the Earth is spherical. And my colleagues and all cartography is based on the sphericity of the Earth. A problem even of reasoning. Because I worked so many years in a belief, and I will accept a new belief, variables that had to be explained. As long as I did not have this explanation, I remained with a very big doubt that tormented me and even made me lose sleep at night. I kept thinking about it. But on this trip we did here on the Tres Marais Dam, we did a very important test. That is the projection of a laser at a distance of approximately 18 kilometers. And it is known in cartography and by the conception of the sphericity of the Earth that we cannot see a thing beyond 10 kilometers. So we witnessed this experience with all success. It was done at night. The laser beam projected parallel to the water mirror. The test resulted perfect and satisfactory. And we made the greatest effort, using as much as we had in our technology to do this test. We brought a laser beam. We brought theodolites. We used communication radios. So I declare concluded the basic part of this research, and I feel it is a moment of glory for us. So to finish, I know there will be a series of confrontations, doubts among other technicians, but we are convinced to get them also to do research. I think this is a very big paradigm shift for Earth science. I, as an engineer, and all the studies I did to train me and specialize in me, I always considered the Earth as a spherical shape. So I had these preconceptions. But for us to start, When we began doing the tests, and until so now, I deleted the prejudices that I had from my head, trying to imagine myself without any knowledge of the Earth, to verify whether it is spherical or not. It is clear, without a doubt, that the Earth in the lakes region is flat. There was no difference of level at all. So I know it's difficult even for you to have the courage to talk about this issue here. Many professionals have refused to talk about it out of fear of having their career damaged, their image damaged, for contradicting a theory that has been there for 2,000 years and which has never been proven in practice. In the case of the Earth's sphericity, they are thus only theories in relation to exact science. What advice would you give to the researchers, to the people who occupy the same chair as you? The important thing is to eliminate these preconceptions, because those who understand these three forces well, magnetism, density, and pressure, may have a very great technological advance, develop other concepts of transport, of energy. I think those who understand from this new knowledge, try to deeply understand, they will have a very great gain in technology. We humans of the Earth, we will have a very great gain of technology. I have learned one thing. We have to have an open mind to discuss any theory, even if it seems absurd. At first, I had this difficulty of understanding this revelation. I spent months working on this. We are coming to the end and all the report. All this will be archived, made available on the internet, for anyone who wants to repeat the tests. We will include all the devices that were used, all technologies, all coordinates. We are here at the Três Marés Dam in Minas Gerais, and all this will be available to all of you, so that everyone can repeat the tests at home if they want. With this, we hope that our contribution to science and to the people, to the government, to the Air Force, not only Brazilian, but to all countries, including, so that all people can have a different vision from those 2,000 years that we had this spherical Earth theory. And now I hope you draw your own conclusions.
All right, good people. Wow, wow, wow. That was good stuff, and I appreciate y'all being here with me through it. The Earth is flat, and that is that. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I am tired. Woo, woo, woo. I recommend sharing this one, folks. This was a good stream, in my opinion. All right. I'm off to dreamland, going to sleep. Yes. I hope y'all have a very marvelous Monday, not a manic Monday, and a wonderful week. I'm sure I'll see y'all again soon. Repent, prepare, watch, and share the truth until the end. Always stand up and speak up against tyranny, evil. Tell me here, tell me out. Thank you. God bless you all.